Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Rydell, actor and now podcast host, I guess. That guy you've seen on a million TV shows and movies, but you still do not know my name.
And I'm David Allen Bache, actor and sometimes producer. And you also recognize me from lots of films and TV shows, but you probably couldn't name one of them right now if I paid you to.
The two of us and our guests are going to let you in on some secrets on how to make it as an actor and share some private stories from the many movies and TV shows that we've worked on.
That's right. We're going to interview a special guest each week, and we'll get their best advice and wisdom for you about how to break into this business and how to stay in it. And yes, again, there will be stories, stories, stories. So, let's get to it.
This is Confessions of a Working Actor. Hey.
Hey, what's up, Chris?
How you doing? I'm doing good. Still overseas.
I'm doing okay. Yeah, that's all right. We'll get you back across the pond one of these days. That's all right. Yeah, I'm doing good. I've been thinking a lot about some of the things that our guests have been talking about, and I've been thinking about it as I watch films and television, and I'm also ready to go back and see some live theater. I'm just craving live theater. But we were watching The Patient, and we were remarking about Steve Carell's stillness and his commitment. And we were watching Bad Sisters, a great show with Sharon Horgan and a bunch of other great actors. And I was just thinking about sort of the essence of what it is to be a character, what it is to be who we are, and what happens when you put us in front of a camera. And I don't know, I was just thinking about acting from the other side. I was thinking about watching performances and how actors feel about seeing other actors, what they like.
When you watch Steve, you really think about less being more,
Yeah.
And he's just there,
Yeah.
And he doesn't push at all.
Yeah.
I really love the show. I've been a little bit frustrated at a couple of episodes because I feel like nothing happened.
Yes.
And they make me wait a full week to watch another 24 minutes. I'm this is not okay.
Yep.
But hanging on everything that he's doing.
And every little thing he's doing, and also all the stuff he's not doing, and we've talked about this, and a bunch of our guests have said this, like, just be yourself, be in front of the camera with your auditions, don't push. I think it was Alicia Reiner who said, don't bring your baggage into the room and say, hey, hold this for me, right? And even on a self-tape, just turn on the camera, be yourself, do your thing, turn off the camera. And I have a few self-tapes to do. One of them is like a racist army general, from World War II. And I was like, oh, perfect. So even though some of these characters are completely unlike me, I'm going to just do my best to step in front of the camera, make an interesting choice, and do very little.
Probably better that way. You don't want to be like trying to be racist.
No,
you just let it, be inside you.
Yeah. Well, listen, speaking of someone who knows how to play a character, we have a real treat today. Just out of SuperMax, it's Linda from Orange is the New Black. We found her. Really, it's the brilliant actress who played Linda and so many other great roles, Beth Dover.
And
Hi.
She's been in a lot of shows, right? Burning Love, Another Period, and of course the hilarious Children's Hospital.
Yep, that's right.
With your pal, if I'm not mistaken, Erin Hayes.
Right, that's right. Yeah, we're going to get Erin on the show. Yeah.
I love Erin.
Yep, she's great. We're going to hear more about that. And we recently had her husband on the podcast, actor Joe Lo Truglio. He said that she might dispute a few things that he had to say. So we'll have to see how this all works out.
Well, let's find out. Let's all welcome Beth Dover to our podcast.
Hi, Beth.
I realized that I made a mistake and I said hello too soon. I should have waited, and I apologize.
Oh no!
I think that's going to be the name of your autobiography.
I should have waited, and I apologize.
No. Hello too soon. Hello too soon.
That too.
Hello too soon.
All of those. But you're talking about Erin Hayes, and I love her so much. I had to say something.
And you worked with Erin on Children's Hospital, and is she still as wacky as ever? That was what I loved about her.
She's so funny. She's just the best. Yeah, Children's Hospital, Medical Police. We just worked on an indie film called The Donor Party together as well.
That's on our list. That's on our list to ask you about that. Let's jump right into that. Tell us about that. Is that Rob Corddry?
Rob Corddry, Jerry O'Connell, Aaron Hayes. There's a bunch of fun people in it.
Great
Eddie
cast.
Guggenheim, Cedric Yarbrough. It's really a fun cast. Malin Ackerman.
Yeah. It's not the Donner Party, which brings to mind something else. It's the Donor Party.
It's the donor party, as in like a sperm donor party.
Oh,
but it's not.
It's not an adult film, is it? I mean, I didn't.
That's not what it is. But it's not an adult film. But that's sort of the play on words.
Yeah, anyway. our podcast is PG, so we.
Well, the Donner Party.
No, it's not. That's bullshit. It's not. It's not real.
Oh, okay, great.
No.
Great.
Donner Party were donors in a sense.
They gave of themselves.
You know what? They did give of themselves. That is a very good point.
That's right. The gift that kept on giving, at least for a few weeks. How was that experience filming it? And is it a spoof? Is it like a high comedy? Is it what?
It's a comedy. It's not a spoof, but it's a comedy.
Okay.
Which, I mean, it makes sense because a lot of us who have worked together and that are in that movie, that have worked on Children's Hospital, we have worked on a lot of those types of things together.
That's why I asked, yeah.
But it is a comedy, and it was so much fun because I got to work with my friends. Ryan Hansen was there. It was just a blast. So yeah, I was only there for a week,
Well, there are no small parts, Beth. Only small actors.
That's right. That's what I hear. That's what I hear.
And was Rob Corddry directing or no?
No, this is a gentleman Tom Harp directed, but Rob was in it. Yeah.
Very good. You know a lot of people. You when you said I worked with my friends, you have a lot of friends who are working actors as well.
Well, those guys in particular are sort of part of that crew, that sort of David Wayne Children's Hospital kind of crew. So I knew them for years from all of that kind of stuff.
Well, I think that begs the question, how did you get started? This is something we ask all of our guests, and Chris and I have a feeling that you grew up as a military brat and maybe even spent part of your childhood in South Korea. And so we're wondering how that translated.
Oh, you have a feeling?
We heard.
We found out
We found out. So we're wondering about that, about your childhood and whether you were wanting to be an actor that early on, and what it was like to travel around, and were you able to jump into your acting dreams, or are we all way off base and it was completely different?
No, I wanted to be an actor since I was 3 years old. So at this point, I have no other discernible skills other than bartending. And
join the club.
Yeah, so I was like a kid actor. I did, my stepdad retired from the military when I was in 8th or 9th grade. So I went to Florida, and at that time in Orlando, there was Nickelodeon shows. So my mom would let me skip school and audition. So I was on like Welcome Freshman and Keenan and Kel and commercials and things like that in high school.
Wow.
And I was, even in New Jersey when I was like 3 or 4, I did like little modeling gigs. I was on like the cover of a dollhouse. I would memorize commercials, so from my earliest memories, I wanted to be an actor for sure. And even in South Korea, I was in a little troupe called the Rainbow Kids, and they were like a singing and dancing group who would perform we performed at a place called Young and Farmland, which was like the Korean Disneyland.
Wow.
So yeah.
So a really early start. Okay.
I was a precocious actory kid. Yes.
Okay.
What's something that you wish you had known when you started that you know now? I was going to say maybe not at 8 years old, but maybe something that when you became you felt as though you were a professional, that you
then I would have to say don't play the compare and despair game. Stay in your own lane. You're on your own journey. Your friends are on their path. Be happy for your friends. It all. I think I wish I was more gentle with myself. I think I wish I had maybe a higher sense of self-esteem or that type of a thing. I think I beat myself up a lot. That's something I probably still work on, to be honest. But I also, the one thing that I think I do well, which is just to stay in my lane and to, know that my path is my own. And, no one's judging me for, I didn't get this part. I didn't get no one cares. So I'm doing my thing. Other people are doing their thing. And I think the happier you are for other people's successes, the more success you'll have. So.
Well, we are a sensitive bunch, I think we find that most actors find themselves, feeling as though maybe it's not happening the way I want to, or why didn't I get that, or do they not like me, or,
constantly.
Constantly. And it doesn't go away, We find we talk to people that have, done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shows, and they're still like, do you like me? Was I good enough? You know, and
compare and despair. Yeah.
Don't do that.
Because that, you know, as an actor, you're like bringing yourself in there, and you know, you're putting yourself out there all the time, you know, just tap dancing all the time. So you're not in this regularly, you're not in a position of power. You're in a position of please like me, right? So, I mean, I think another thing I would recommend is balance, have your own life, you know, don't only put all your eggs in the acting basket, because you have to also become a well-rounded human to be a better actor.
Well, that's good. That's good advice. And I think that's something that I wish I knew when I was starting out. And I mean, but you kind of did put all your eggs in one basket. I mean, you were doing the Miss Preteen Osan Air Force Base pageant, and you were like, right? You were all in. I mean, you were.
Did Joe tell you that?
We don't tell, Chris and I don't tell where we get our information from, but no,
whatever.
It was not.
I mean,
husband.
not to brag. I was second runner-up in the Miss Preteen Osan Air Force Base pageant. I sang La Bamba. My mom made my purple and black polka dotted dress.
Booyah. Impressive sound effect. Insert here.
Yes, exactly. Yes. No, very embarrassing. Very embarrassing.
No, that's cool. Well, that's an interesting thing to hear about what, you know, we like to ask, what's something that you know now that you didn't quite know then? Something that, you know.
Well, I think that's actually a good thing is knowing to balance. I didn't have that. I was so singularly focused and so ambitious. And maybe that's something that is a good thing to have when you're young and starting out in this business, because I was ignorant to how impossible it actually is, you know? And I think in a way that was necessary for me. I'm glad I didn't know how hard it was and how many years I'd have to bartend and all of those things, you know?
Right.
I think in a way it's good to have that. And, you know, the people I was with at that time doing theater with in New York City and, you know, working 3 jobs and all of that, we were all kind of in it together. So in a way it was this sort of beautiful, creative time. I miss it actually, but I'm glad I didn't realize how many years it would take to achieve anything. You know.
So during that time of struggle, of new successes, making your way, building a body of work, what's something you feel like you did right, that you really did right, and something you feel like maybe you did wrong? We heard you say like you wish you had been gentler with yourself, less compare and despair. What's something that you did really right when you were sort of starting out and coming up? I
stayed in class. I surrounded myself with people who I thought were I thought were better than me, you know, as an actor that I could learn from. But I think staying in class was really great for me, because I was able to have a community of actors that I could work with, that we were all in the same boat. We could create our own material together, that type of thing. So yeah, finding your community and finding your people, I think is really important early on, especially.
I'm hearing you say that, and I also heard your husband say that. You know, he had his crew from NYU.
Oh yeah.
They started, and they were able to create something. And I think a lot of times we feel like we're alone. You know, and you go to class and you study and you leave, you call your agent, and you're hoping something happens, and you're not like surrounding yourself like. It takes a village. It takes a team. It keeps you inspired. It keeps you, you know, like you said, you get to, you know, watch somebody that, you know, that you look up to, that maybe you feel is better than you. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, another thing that I did, which I completely forgot about, when I moved to New York, I did like 2 extra jobs. I was an extra on Angels in America. And then when I moved to LA, I did extra work one time as well. But I just wanted to see what it was like, what people did. I wanted to be a fly on the wall. I didn't want to always be an extra or a background player. I would rather bartend but it was nice to be on set just to see, before I had any experience, just to watch how professional actors conducted themselves on a set,
and how a set works. Yeah, we were just talking about that. We were just talking about that. About you know, learning what does everybody do on a set? What's the first AD's job? What does the second AD do? What's different? Like you really you get an advantage when you spend time on a professional set.
Absolutely, and even, you know, in my early days, it was very important for me to just really watch what people did because I was faking it till I made it. You know what I mean? I was pretending like I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know. I didn't know what back to one meant, but I kind of did in context. You know, so I just I was a sponge. I was just a total sponge.
I think that's probably part of your success. And I mean, I did a film. I hesitate to call it an indie film. It really was more like a student film. And I'll be honest, the director and the two writers, producers, I don't think had ever set foot on a professional set. I think they did student films, and I know they went to a small film program at a small college, but I don't think either of them had ever set foot on a professional set, and you could tell, and so they had no idea what everybody else was expecting, and what they put forward was not a professional set, and it was so just go be on a set. Do background work, and we've said this before. Don't do too much of it because we don't want.
Don't do too much of it.
I don't want casting just to see you as background only, but do some of it, and then
It's a perfect segue, Beth, into a question that we ask, which is, what does it mean to you to be a working actor? Because, I mean, somebody might say, well, that's not a working actor, but that's somebody working at their craft. So.
Absolutely. And I think it's whatever people want to do. I think for me, being a working actor has probably shifted through the years. I think I used to want to be like, I don't know, whatever the word famous is, like, oh, I want to do, now I really love working with my friends. I really love doing interesting projects for me that I find interesting, but I also still do commercials,
I just saw you on, what did I just see you on the other day? Priceline.
Yeah,
ka-ching, ka-ching.
But I'm all over the place. For me, I've sort of taken my ego out of a lot of it. Sometimes I'm on a big TV show and I have a SAG award, or sometimes I'm on a Priceline commercial, or sometimes I do this indie film. And there's your wife is here.
For the listeners, we just want to note that Beth just leaned out of the Zoom frame to point to the SAG award on the shelf behind her, as well she should.
But that's a perfect example, right? So I have a SAG award, right? That's great. And I'm also on a Priceline commercial. To me, that's a working actor. Like I do, some years are better than others. And, I had a good 5-year run, with Orange and Another Period and all of that. And then pandemic hit. I was a really, for everyone, I didn't work for 18 months and I was like, wow, who am I? Right.
Yep.
And which is another piece of advice. You gotta have your own life as well, because when all that is gone, man, it can really mess you up a little bit.
I have a question for you in regards to, you said it's great to work with friends. How is it working with your husband?
Ooh,
because rumor has it that you just did a film with him, and we're on location with him.
Outpost.
And with a lot of friends.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we had to do it with a lot of friends because it was an indie film and we financed a lot of it ourselves. And he wrote, directed it. I starred in it. We shot it in the middle of nowhere in Idaho. Every day we'd have to drive about an hour up and then an hour back down this, mountain. I mean, it was a wild shoot. But it was awesome. I mean, Joe and I work really great together as actors. And we work really great together as a director actor because I know, what I'm doing and he knows his role.
Where you stand.
Yeah, I think sometimes where we don't work well together is writing. We don't write very well together. We have differing opinions and I think we just sort of clash. So we don't write together too much, but acting is great. And with the directing though, the one thing we did do, which I think was smart, was he had his room and I had my room because he was up doing his director things and I wanted to get my beauty sleep for the next day or whatever it was. And that was actually his idea. And I thought, oh, I didn't think about that. But honestly, it was the best thing we could have done because it was such an intense shoot that we both just needed to sort of, once again, stay in our lane, I suppose, for that shoot. But it was great. We're going to be in a film festival at the end of the month in London and Fright Fest. And so
Oh,
now we're getting it out there.
Fright Fest is the real thing. That's fantastic. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's called Outpost.
Outpost for all the horror fans out there. Oh, it should be great.
Yeah, I'm
Very
excited.
exciting.
And Joe has worked so hard on it. It's like his baby. It's his dream to direct a horror film. So, it was great.
So it's good to hear that you worked well with your significant other. I'm sure there's lots of actors listening who are in a relationship with another actor or another creative person, maybe a writer, director, who knows. Can you share with us, and maybe it's from the set of Outpost, who knows, but can you share with us a story of a positive experience that you had with another actor or a director or someone in casting or something where just something that really impressed you, someone in the business behaved in a way where you felt like, oh yeah, we need more of that, or that's how I want to be, or,
Yeah. I mean, that happens to me all the time, but it's before I forget, one more piece of advice that Joe gave me, which I've never forgotten, because I sometimes feel I have that imposter syndrome thing where Joe makes fun of me because I'll go on set and I'll be like, well, how do you? And he's like, Beth, you've been doing this for over 20 years. What are you talking about? You're asking like very basic questions. I was like, I know, but like, how do you say words out of your mouth? So I was doing this really big table read. And it was like Will Ferrell and a bunch of like really fancy people. And I thought, well, why did they invite me? Like, why am I there? Why they ask me to come? And Joe goes, you're in the room for a reason. They're not taking pity on you. Oh, and I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. So every time I get nervous, I say to myself, I'm in the room for a reason. I'm not, and that helps me every time. Every time I'm nervous, I say that. Sorry, I needed to.
I love that. No, I love that.
That's great. We love that kind of advice.
That's a great piece of advice. And that's good and that's good advice too, because it's not just and later in the podcast we're going to ask you maybe for your absolute best piece of advice. But that's good thing. That's a good thing for people to remember. We're not talking about just an audition or trying to get in the room, but once you get in the room, once you get on the set, and Chris, you probably experienced this, and I know, Beth, you probably have too, is sometimes a younger actor or a newer actor will come on a set and they're so nervous, and that doubt and that insecurity is so present that they can't quite do it. It's really hard for them to get the lines out. They trip over the lines or the blocking, and God willing, things settle down. People help them. They get out of their own way and do it. But that's good advice for situations like that. You're in the room for a reason. Yeah,
I've had situations like that where I'm really nervous. I've had situations where I'm really nervous, and I say that every time, and it works every time for me.
Love it.
So
it's great because you got to have a tool. Do you have a tool that when you're nervy that you use?
Well, that's one of them. Also, I listen to music when I'm driving places. Maybe I'll throw on that song, The Business or whatever, and you're driving, you pump yourself up a little bit. And just for me, it's confidence building stuff. So yeah.
I always find that for me, it was a concentration. It's like a muscle. And to be able to get out of your own way, to be able to be so focused that you're not worried about what people think, because when you're worried about what people think, you're not in the moment.
Then you're not in the moment.
Oh, that's right. Exactly right.
So like, how do you, and that's why when you said, I stayed in class, because it's so, being active, being proactive, working on that muscle of concentration and focus allows you to really get there. In the job, in the audition, and actually, like you said, I think everything slows down for you as an actor the more you work, obviously, and you can kind of just be
and breathe a little more,
and not breathe, and not feel as though it's like, oh my God, I'm taking half breaths here, like I'm not even filling my lungs. I'm so worried,
Yeah. Well, I feel like those moments happen, or like when you first get to a set, where it's like, but like with Orange, by the time I had done a few seasons, you just the character, it's in your body, it's like relaxing. Right. It's not hard really. Like you just know it.
Here's a trick that I'm going to use. I'm going to do a day. I think it's just going to be one day. It might turn into two, but we'll see. On Lioness, the new Nicole Kidman, Zoe Saldana TV show, and just coming on for a day, doing a guest role, playing a doctor. I could do it with my eyes closed, but I haven't been on a set in a little while. I've been in front of a microphone. We made a movie during the pandemic, but it was in isolation, right? And one thing that always helps me is to hold on to the furniture. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but if I'm ever asked, or given a little freedom about blocking, or even if the director says, I need you over here, we're going to light for this side, and I see it as she's sitting in the chair, you're standing over here. I might say, I was great, yes, of course, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. But also, can there be a rolling chair? Do you guys? I see that rolling chair over there. Are you cool as long as it's quiet? If I pull it over, just put my hand on it while I talk to her, and somehow holding on to a piece of the furniture grounds me.
Kind of grounds you.
No matter how nervous I am, just grounds me.
Yeah.
And
you don't have to worry about what to do with your hands.
Right. I don't over gesticulate. That's right. That's exactly right.
I have some advice too. If you are playing a doctor and you happen to have a stethoscope, make sure you put them in your ears. If you're going to use them.
Good point.
Very good point. Very good point. I did a hidden camera show once where I had to put my hands in someone's mouth. I played like a dentist.
Oh my.
And I forgot to put my gloves on. But the guy thought I was a dentist. By the way, doing a hidden camera show is an absolute fucking nightmare. And I hated everyone. I was an improviser, I went through Second City. And so I got the job as an improviser, but I did not like messing with people who didn't know that they were being messed with. I just did not like,
wow.
Everyone was fine at the end. It was funny and everyone liked it, but I hated it. But yeah, I was playing a dentist. I forgot to put the gloves on. My hand was in this guy's mouth. How gross is that? Anyway.
Do you have a worst audition story you could share with us?
Oh, God. Sure. I have two that come to mind. I have one from when I was in college where it was like the first audition for the main stage production and, everyone was there. And I wanted to sing High Flying Adored from Evita, but I could only sing it in a certain key. And you give the person, the piano player, the sheet music. And they played it an octave higher and I just completely choked. And then I did an audition for a year after that because it was just so horrifying. And I did it in front of all of my professors and the entire everyone. So that was, before I became like a professional actor. And then once I did become a professional actor, they only, I don't know, in the past 10 years or so, will put lav mics on you
they clip
before you go
shirt,
in.
right,
they clip them to you. But they didn't always do that.
No.
And so early on, when the first time that ever happened to me, they mic'd me up. I go, what is happening? Okay. It was a callback or whatever. Fine. I'm like, uh-oh. Great. And we walk in and Tim Robbins is in there, but no one told me Tim Robbins was going to be in there.
Uh-oh.
And so I didn't have time to like prep and I was still in my 20s and I just was so nervous that I once again completely choked. In fact, I blacked it out so much, I don't even know what happened other than the fact that it was terrible.
Wait, what is the lav? Does the lav have, were you like talking to, did you like put your head down and you're like, oh my God, it's Tim Robbins, it's Tim Robbins. Like, were you, like, does the lav mic just throw you off?
The mic, I was like, oh, they're micing me. What's going on? Now this happens much more, but back then that was like the first time that had ever happened to me. So I was already a little nervous with that.
Yes.
And then I walk in. And it's Tim Robbins.
And there's someone you don't expect. Got it.
I wasn't expecting him in the room. No one told me.
Yeah.
So now I could navigate all that now because it's all less intimidating. But back then it was so intimidating. Also,
did you ever walk out of a room?
Think they should have told me.
They should have told you. Yeah, I was going to say. Did you ever walk out of a room with the lav on, like, and go, look, like the comic? I've done that. I've been so nervous and want to get out of the room. I'm like, thank you, okay, bye, and I don't unclip it, and then I'm like, oh.
I haven't done that, but I could see myself doing.
Sometimes I want to run out of the room. That imposter complex kicks up, and if I'm able to shut it off for the audition, at the second the last word is out, then I'm like, oh my God, shit, I got to get out of here. And I forget about the basically the chain that's attached to me and run out.
Right.
We've heard some great advice like stay in your own lane, right? And some other great pieces of advice. Is there one more? You have one more to leave us with? We always ask for sort of the best piece of advice.
Gosh. You're in the room for a reason. I love. Be gentle with yourself. I love. Do something every day to get toward your goal, go toward your goal, especially when you're first starting out. do something every single day, you know, because you got to hustle, especially at the beginning, especially if you don't have people that, which I didn't. I was like some suburban kid from Florida. I didn't know anybody. So I didn't have any people I knew, you know. My dad was so funny. He got me a meeting. My dad's 87. He got me, when I first moved to LA, got me a meeting with the only person he knew. He was in business. He was like, I have a friend. He works for Dick Clark's company and you can meet. So I met with him. And I mean, this gentleman was very old. It was his last week there. He was about to retire. He had nothing to do with, I think he was in like the game show department. Like, I don't, but I was like, that's very sweet, Dad. But yeah, I mean, I just think you do something every day to get you towards your goal, you know, whether that's being in class, whether that's, you know, back in my day, we would do like send outs. I would do so many send outs, or I would randomly walk into agents' offices and say that I had a meeting with them when I didn't. That's how I got one of my first agents.
Oh, wait, say that again.
I would go, well, I wouldn't recommend doing this, but I was once again, I was like really ambitious and I wanted things so bad, but I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
So I would go to this place called Samuel French and I would get
Samuel French booksellers. Yeah,
I'd look at certain agents and their names, and I wouldn't even buy the book, but I'd like write down their stuff. And I walk into the, you know, office and say that I had a meeting or like they requested this material, and sometimes they believe me. And that's how I got my first agent.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's gutsy.
Gotta love that. Yeah, because I'm sure that's what they were thinking too.
Yeah.
Like, this girl's got some chutzpah. Get her in here.
Yeah.
You know, she's someone with some passion.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that. That's gutsy. And that's, you know, that sort of is an additional piece of advice, which is, sure, there are some rules, but sometimes you have to break some rules and you have to be gutsy and you have to be brave. And I know, you know, when I was first starting out, I would walk my headshot and resume all over town, right? It wasn't email, and you could mail it, but I wanted to save money on the stamps, and I wanted to break the rules a little bit, so I would walk into the office, and there'd be a bin outside the door.
Yes, I remember that.
Right, stacked up with headshots, right? You remember this, Chris? They wouldn't even let you in the door. There would just be a box, and it would have an arrow, and it would say actors' headshots here, and it was like it may as well have been the garbage can, and I was like, so I would ignore that. Every time I would open the door and I would go in and I would say, hey, sometimes they would get me before I could say a word. They'd say, there's a box outside. But sometimes it was someone sweet behind the desk, someone nice. And male or female, I would turn on the charm and I was like, hey, I hate having my head at the, you know, on the carpet, and I hate having, you know, my face stepped on when people come in and out of the office. I thought I'd just take a chance and hand this to you directly, you know? Yeah. And once someone said, well, okay, this is a good picture. Sit down, have a seat, let's talk. And I was like, whoa. And that was one of my first freelance agents. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you got to get creative, especially if you don't have any leg up in this business. It's a hard business. I don't know back in the day, this is I think it's probably harder to do things like this now, but it's definitely a hustle to try to, get your foot in the door.
Now you're sending your headshot, to, the email us your headshot, email us your stuff,
Right.
Like there's no face to face really,
Remember when you used to staple your headshot and then you'd cut the excess paper, all of that stuff.
Yeah. I recently asked my agent something like, I don't remember what it was for. And I was like, do you want me to email you a headshot? Should I send you a headshot? And I got a really good answer, which was lovely. He said, David, they don't need your picture. They know who you are.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, great. Yeah. And I was coming from a place of they have no idea who I am, or why would I presume that they do? Wasn't a casting person that I knew had cast me before, or that I had ever had a drink with outside of the office. It was a new casting person, and was my manager, who was like, no, they don't need your picture. They know who you are. And I was like, oh, great. But if you before then, take that picture and get it to someone somehow, anyhow, anyway. Do anything you can. Short, of course, of anything completely illegal or
yes,
inappropriate.
Well, it goes back to what Beth said about there's a reason why you're there.
Yeah, you have to believe in yourself too. Yeah.
Yeah, they did their research. They did their
Yeah.
research on you. They
right.
know who you are. They're like,
right.
okay, get him in here. We've seen what he's done.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
And even if they don't, another thing that some guests have said is that just act as if, right? And that
Absolutely.
and that goes for auditions, general meetings, when you step on the set, when you get the job, anything goes for all of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it also goes for, award shows where, it's like, look, no matter where you're at, you might be crazy nervous and you need to act as if you're not. And you need to act as if you're in that kind of a room every day, and that's where you belong. And and I know when I was starting out, I had got a small theater job, and I went to sit down with an agent, and I wanted to tell her, like, hey, I got this job. It was at a Tony Award-winning theater. It's a very small role, but I would like you to represent me. And I walked in, and the secretary was like, she's not here. And I said, I saw her come in. And she's like, well, she's not available, was what I meant. And I said, okay, I'll wait. And I sat down. She's like, well, you can't wait there all day. And I said, that's okay. I'll just wait until she has a minute. And this woman was getting really frustrated with me. And I was as kind and as polite as could be. And eventually she was like, you know what? She's not going to see you. And I said, okay. And I tucked my tail between my legs and I walked out. And I got halfway down the block. And then I said, no, no. I'm just going to act as if. I turned around, I walked back in, I said to the secretary, look, I have a job. I have a job offer from a Tony Award-winning regional theater, and it's not a lot of money, but it's enough. And if you want to cost the agency 10% by turning me away, then you'll have to explain to her why you did that. I said, I'd really like to talk to her. I'm obviously, like I obviously belong here, basically, was what I was trying to say. I didn't say it in those words, but I was like, and she was like, ugh. Okay. And she got on the phone and called back and repeated what I said and then was like, she'll see you.
Right.
And I was like, okay. And I was a little pushy. I was nice about it, but I was like you said, Chris, I belong here. Yeah. Right? I belong here. And she could have said, hey, thanks for that. I'm not interested at all. We were only representing people with more experience, whatever. She could, but I never would have known anything if I hadn't taken that chance, walked back down the block and said, hey, look, I know this is how things usually go. I don't want to do it the usual way. I'd really like her to see me. It'll take 5 minutes. And
be creative.
Be
Beth
creative.
Said it.
Be creative. Be bold.
Be creative. Be bold. Get what you want. You know, they're going to treat you how you want to be treated. Really, if you treat yourself well with respect, people are going to treat you with respect. If you are a serious actor, people will treat you as a serious actor.
Yeah. And then it's fun to completely, absolutely, and utterly make fun of yourself, which is also good. Which is also
yes, absolutely.
Beth, thank you for joining us. What?
Oh my goodness, thank you. I feel like I didn't say anything, but this was so fun to see your face.
You said so much, and you're going to hear it when you listen to it back. You're going to be like, hey, I said that. I said that sounds wise. Be brave. Be bold. Be creative.
That's right.
Stay in your own lane. I mean, we got a lot of real gems.
Yeah.
We sure did. We sure did.
We so appreciate it. And not a lot of conflicts between what you said and what your husband said. So
great.
I have high hopes for the marriage, I just want to say.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think it might last. I give it at least another 6 months.
At least another movie.
Yeah, at least one more movie. Yeah.
Woo!
Don't take my advice and don't
4-year odyssey, y'all.
Don't try to produce together. Just take it from me. Don't try to produce together because, unless one of you is an executive producer and the other one is like an associate producer. Like if there's no clear boundaries in your creative duties, there will be no clear boundaries in your marriage, which is a recipe for disaster. And I am still married, but I do not want to produce with my wife again.
Yes, I hear you.
It can be very difficult.
I hear you, and I agree with that as well, coming from my end as well. Yes.
All right. Good deal.
Well,
I always
thank
like
you
when
again.
anyone agrees with me. Thank you again. We have great respect for you. Beth Dover, everyone.
Dover.
A wonderful actor. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Well, it's been another great 20 minutes with you, my friend.
And you too, brother. It's been fun.
Yeah, that was great.
Cool. I thought that was awesome. All right, star that.
That was terrific.
And we got another great guest coming up next week, so be sure to tune in again to Confessions of a Working Actor.